Karp is an absolute dog, as we mentioned before. He's profiled here in this wonderful Wall Street Journal article. Let's kick it off here. It says, Palantir stock was days away from hitting an all-time high, and the company's chief executive, Alex Karp, had retreated to his cavernous mountain cabin. It features neatly captured the interests of a billionaire on a quest to save the West. The windows were adorned with curtains bearing an American flag motif. Completed and half-completed Rubik's Cubes were scattered on the coffee tables.
It makes total sense if you're actually into Rubik's Cubes to just have a bunch of them. So you can just pick them up, whatever.
It's great.
You can try to do them in order really quickly, time yourself.
Yeah. It's very, I can do a Rubik's Cube and it's very meditative to actually do it. It's really fun if you're just like kind of thinking.
Oh, you're a shape rotator?
Yeah. And Karp asks, do you want to see my guns? One of Karp's hobbies is long range shooting, which I've been saying is going to get more popular in PRS, precision rifle shooting, whose targets fall outside of normal parameters of a firearm, he explained. He struck a stance to show the blend of practice and instinct that combines for the perfect shot. More than 2 decades of running Palantir, a data analysis firm best known for working with the U.S. military and intelligence agencies, has made Karp a billionaire many times over through government work. Though government work represents only a portion of the balance sheet that leans heavily on commercial clients, it gives the whole company a secret ops vibe. Karp can talk about his own guns far more readily than he can talk about the more secretive activities of Palantir, whose market cap is more than $260 billion. In the cast of philosopher kings who have emerged from Silicon Valley in the past several years, Karp cuts an unusual figure. He is far from one name.
Do you want to talk about his philosophy path? Wasn't he?
Yes.
He has a PhD in
He has a PhD
philosophy?
in philosophy, and he studied under Jürgen Habermas in Germany. And there's a little bit of controversy about it because he transferred in and out of one program. And so the real like PhD nerds are like, well, he wasn't like fully Habermas's like under his tutelage the entire time, or like, was he the mentor or not?
Tell those people to go build a $260 billion
yeah.
company.
And so I actually at one point I downloaded his thesis and tried to translate it and read it. It was very, very dense.
Is it in, it's in
German?
German.
Yeah. And I speak German, so it's very hard.
This is good evidence that you can kind of go on. If you're truly goated, don't worry about the path that you're on, because you'll just find your way into greatness.
Yeah,
even if it's totally unpredictable.
Yeah, I mean, especially with like everyone in the teal orbit, we've seen this. I mean, I'm sure that's how he got linked up. Just doing something really interesting at the power law of some bizarre like niche hobby, instead of being super tracked and being like, hey, I want to like be a venture person and then go start a company. Like he was not like the MBA type. And so he got into money management and ran like a small money management firm in Europe, and then got linked up with Peter and started Palantir after 9/11, because the whole thesis was, with the internet and better data analysis, you could potentially stop the next 9/11 if you can piece the puzzle together before it happens. And so in the cast of philosopher kings who have emerged from Silicon Valley in the past several years, Karp cuts an unusual figure. He is far from one name status like Mark or Elon or Zuck, I guess, and indeed barely known outside small circles in tech and politics, or beyond the army of retail investors who have anointed him their anti-establishment billionaire hero. Since the nation's top tech CEOs traveled to Washington for Trump's inauguration 3 weeks ago, Americans have been guests at the shotgun wedding between Silicon Valley.
I don't know where this writer is going to take this article completely, but I actually love his writing style.
Oh, it's great.
It's really fun.
Yeah, and that is a perfect way to describe a shotgun wedding.
Shotgun wedding.
Because Elon was saying, I'm not going to vote for Trump, like, or I'm voting for not Biden, like less than a year ago. Yeah. Like March of 2024.
And then now,
he was like, I'm not sure.
Fast forward to January or February. Now he's saying, I love Donald Trump the most amount that a man can love another man without being romantic.
It's so good. It's like the greatest. Like, did you see the interview they did on Fox?
But it's one of those things, like, you take two polarizing, iconic people, Elon Musk, however you feel about either of them, they're polarizing and iconic.
Yes.
And then you let them actually get to know each other and work together. They're gonna, even if in another scenario they're not like best friends, they will respect each other's game.
Did you see the Fox News interview that's going out where they did it together? It's like straight up out of Step Brothers. It's like great. They are going buddy cop movie on the presidency, on the executive branch. They're just like, it's a buddy cop movie now. It's so ridiculous. They're just like, we're boys, and so we're going to do this.
Imagine the documentaries on their dynamic of storming storming the White House.
It's got to be
They need to start doing, I talk about UFC a lot because it's specifically just a great media entertainment product, but we need UFC Embedded, this sort of lead up, just like 24/7, right? And I want like Dana White in the White House being like, advising them on like how to get the right, here's how we shoot Embedded.
Oh man, it's wild. Just to hear them actually have an off the record conversation with each other would be. To be a fly on the wall, man, would be wild.
Yeah.
Karp will step further into the fray with the publication next week of his new book, The Technological Republic, Hard Power, Soft Belief, and the Future of the West, a cri de coeur that aims at the tech industry for abandoning its history of helping America and its allies. The last 2 decades in the sector amount to a gigantic waste in Karp's view, while he and his colleagues at Palantir were helping identify roadside bombs in Kandahar to save the lives of American soldiers. The book asserts their contemporaries back in Northern California, lulled by decades of peace, were making sure that college-educated smartphone users could buy coupons for paragliding lessons and play Farmville. They're talking about Groupon and Zynga.
Facebook,
which is funny because Mark Pincus is now fully in this crew, going on Pirate Wires and fully like I wish I should have. I wish I'd been in control of my company. If Karp's new book can be encapsulated by one of its sentences, it may be this one. The wonderkind of Silicon Valley, their fortunes, business empires, and more fundamentally, entire sense of self exist because of the nation that in many cases made their rise possible. It is time, Karp believes, for the industry to repay that debt. That's a good point.
Yep.
The book's co-written by Nicholas Zamiska, and it was finished late last year, and elements of its central argument seem to have come true in just the past few weeks. A section of eliminating wasteful government spending sounds a bit like Musk's Doge, another on encouraging more partnerships between the government and the private sector on artificial intelligence work evokes Trump's Stargate plan to build energy capabilities with OpenAI and other firms.
It's amazing they're positioning this as Trump's Stargate plan because it was a press conference for Massa and Sam Altman that happened to take place with Trump present.
Yeah.
But I think he was just like, this is cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Now it's his plan. But it was also and
the alternative is we could have seen the alternative play out, which is Sam and Massa or just make it even random. 2 tech people are doing something cool, and the president is like condemning it and being like, these tech people have too much power. We need to regulate them, which is like what we were dealing with for the last 4 years.
Yeah, it's much healthier for Trump, even though he's boys with Elon, to go out and endorse a project like that because it's generally, if Moss is rounding up hundreds of billions of dollars internationally to invest in U.S. Data centers and AI capabilities, that's net good for America.
Yeah. Karp says, we've been very good at forecasting the current present state a couple years before it happened. Incredibly telling because that's the whole idea of the Palantir, the crystal ball. It's like, see the future. That's the product. And then that's also the company philosophy. It's a pitch that has helped give Palantir and Karp some of the best weeks in the company history. The stock's gone up 180% since the day before Trump was elected. Growth in Palantir's AI business and the expectation that the new administration will favor Palantir over old war horses like Lockheed Martin have driven this.
This writer's again fantastic. Old war horses.
Palantir is very long America, said Karp. He is quick to remind potential clients that he is happy to assist in their dirty work of empire. On an earnings call with investors earlier this month, he said that Palantir is making America more lethal by analyzing troves of data for the U.S. armed forces and allies to help them anticipate enemies' moves, locate their coordinates, and on occasion, kill them. He doesn't mince words, this Karp. He's fantastic. Karp backed President Joe Biden's reelection and supported Kamala Harris when she became the nominee, but he has been surrounded by those in Trump's orbit for years, starting with Peter Thiel, who spoke at the 2016 Republican National Convention. Several Palantir alumni have recently taken jobs in the Trump administration, further deepening the company's ties. They hired Mark Gallagher, of course. Karp has been wealthy for many years with the trappings of a billionaire and the ready soliloquies of an executive accustomed to being received as an oracle. At least a half dozen staffers were in his home during my weekend visit, probably one of our boys, including 2 stationed just inside the driveway, another who directed me where to park, 2 communications professionals, and several strapping assistants, one of whom ordered a book at Karp's request, another who tossed him logs to build him a fire in the living room, and another whom Karp addressed in German. Gunther, he cried out, Kaffee mit zwei Zucker. Coffee with 2 sugars, I guess. Karp has no background in engineering. He was raised in Philadelphia, went to Haverford College and then Stanford Law School before heading to Germany for graduate school. His doctorate from Goethe University Frankfurt was on neoclassical social philosophy, work that prepared him to pose questions like, what does it mean to make a bad decision? At what level of abstraction? How deep do you go to know if it's a good or bad decision?
One note, this is my coffee order too.
Yeah.
And coffee with 2 sugars.
Okay.
Is coming back in a big way.
Okay.
It went way out of style.
Sure.
Everybody's like, oh, give me my oat milk. Give me my black coffee.
Yeah.
There's something, I'm going to butcher the science, but black coffee has been shown to reduce testosterone.
Okay.
Yet coffee with sugar has, the sugar sort of negates whatever that effect is.
Sure.
And so
there we go.
The other benefit of putting sugar in your coffee is it tastes much better.
Yeah.
You know,
of course.
Who would have known?
It's bitter, thought? It just kills the bitterness.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, people have been worried about sugar and calories for so long, but sugar's making a big comeback.
We actually got to do a Ray Pete deep dive.
Okay, we do.
Because he's influencing an entire generation of posters on their health.
Yeah.
And becoming bigger than he was when he was alive.
Yeah, it's massive. The company's early work traced a series of terrorist attacks to the same Iraqi village and identified a cyber network infiltration campaign against the Dalai Lama. Thanks to Palantir software, the U.S. military was able to find and eliminate roadside bombs in Afghanistan by discovering patterns in how they were deployed. And we broke this down on another show, but people always ask, oh, what does Palantir even do? And it's pretty easy to actually think about and visualize. You put all the data about what is in a different bomb. This one's got dynamite, this one's got TNT, this one's got C4, this one's got something else, and this one has nails, this one has shrapnel, and you put that all on a map and you can see where they're all coming from very easily. And so that's like the simplest, most basic product to think about. Obviously, they do a million other things with data lakes and storing all sorts of information, analytics, visualization, running AI on top of big data sets. So they started with $30 million in startup costs, largely covered by Thiel and his venture capital fund. Founders Fund. As the company saw its valuation grow, the central question emerged: what exactly did Palantir do? Descriptions of the company's offerings came crammed with jargon. Competitors who had been around for a few years dismissed the rookie as a gussied up data analytics firm. Few interviews passed where Karp didn't answer a question by saying he couldn't answer the question. It was classified. Certainly that was true, but it gave the whole operation a bit of mystique. And the thing is that even though the public was very unclear on what Palantir did, it didn't stop them at all, because they were still able to raise enough money to keep the business going. And they were an insane talent magnet. They hired like all the best people in Silicon Valley and out of MIT and stuff.
And it's helpful to not be having to notify the entire world and potential competitors what you're doing, and just keeping stuff under wraps, because people do all the time see startups launch and try to re-engineer what they're doing, or it's totally possible that big tech companies that would have been really viable competitors for this just didn't have quite enough visibility. They could have figured stuff out if they really dug, but overall it kind of let them get this massive lead on a very important sort of category. Yeah.
This is some crazy history that I think a lot of people don't realize, because they maybe just seen Palantir in the retail sector or as a retail stock. But in 2013, this was less than a decade after its founding. It was still a grind to get there, but Palantir had 1,200 employees and a valuation of $9 billion. So by then it was like this almost decacorn, very established company doing very real things. And everyone was like, "Oh, it's gonna IPO," but the opacity of Palantir's financials only added to its reputation as a black box. They finally filed to go public in 2020, and I think they went public in the tens of billions, like maybe 20 billion, and they were around the 50. Same. What?
Under
50 billion, right?
Let me look on public. Actually,
and so Palantir went from in basically like 7 years, 9 billion to 20 billion, like not a huge growth era. It was kind of like a flat, like grinded out period. And then finally, once the AI narrative hit, once the business was really cooking, then it ripped.
They went out at somewhere like 6.78 billion.
Yeah. So
on
a lot of people were like,
oh,
like what have they been doing for the last decade, basically?
Yeah.
Like that was the narrative. And they showed everybody. I love it. And so in 2020, he moved Palantir's headquarters from Palo Alto to Denver. Because we seem to share fewer and fewer of the technology sector's values and commitments. And there were protests against Palantir that actually followed the company to Colorado. Karp started to gain a following, becoming a chief executive uniquely suited to a time when Reddit threads and viral clips can shape a company's identity as much as earning calls and analyst reports. Karp's memeable look, the untamed curly hair, the rimless glasses and white t-shirt, and unvarnished remarks have turned him into a celebrity among the retail investors who count themselves as Palantirians. That's not the word that they use online most of the time, but we'll allow it. We'll keep it clean in the WSJ.
Yeah. The dominant narrative, even as of 2020, is that the private markets had so much access to capital.
Yep.
It was becoming hard, or some people would say impossible, to generate meaningful returns because these companies would go public, with hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in revenue. And Palantir is basically, if you invested, within the first few weeks of the IPO, you'd be sitting at roughly like a 35x at this point. So totally, contrarian.
Yep.
And certainly wasn't obvious. Even when they went public, people would be, talking poorly about the company and the stock, saying, this is an overvalued consulting firm, blah, 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 blah. So that was the narrative that, still today people will say, try to figure out ways to sort of pick at it and find flaws in the business. But, it's hard to argue with.
Hard to argue with it at this point.
Yeah.
I love this quote. He says, I really, really revere the people who revere me. This is not always the case if you talk to people who are famous, he said, holding court on the small staircase that leads to his sunken living room, dressed in house clogs and head-to-toe athleisure, including joggers, a zip-up, a vest, and a knit cap. Over his right shoulder, a chandelier ringed with 7 lamps and cast-iron moose heads. In 2020, you'll love this, Karp was paid $1.1 billion in total compensation, the highest of any chief executive at a publicly traded company. Yeah. In 2022... Quick hit of the size gong for Karp. That was a good one. In 2022, with Russian tanks rolling into Ukraine, he warned against nuclear escalation in the war, but acknowledged that bad times are good for Palantir. Around the same time, however, Palantir reported a decline in revenue growth from its government contracts. Shares sank to less than $7 before their steady climb in mid-2024. The surge in recent months has led some analysts to set new price targets for the company, but its fast-rising stock has led others to question whether Palantir can ever grow into its massive current valuation, which gives it a market capitalization more than twice of Lockheed Martin. But is Lockheed Martin in founder mode? No, they are not. Today, Palantir is leaning into its reputation as a dominant player. A commercial for the company aired during the Army-Navy football game last year, played like a Tom Clancy thriller with drone swarms, infrared missiles, and even a tagline fit for a 1990s movie poster. Battles are won before they begin. Pretty great. So the Technological Republic is likely the only book by a business executive to feature 3 epigrams, one in German, citations from the Bible, Richard Linklater's Before Sunset, and an outright attack on a market leader, Google's shallow and thinly veiled nihilism.
Brutal.
Karp admits it wasn't the most commercial of choices. The book I should write to sell, he said, would be AI Karp, AI Karp, AI Karp. He knows the memes. He knows. It's great. He's advocated for many.
Clearly, this is meant to be the bedrock of the next 20, 30 years of Palantir's work, not a commercially successful New York Times bestseller. Although I'm sure it will.
I'm sure it will rip.
New York Times. When is it actually? Does it release this week?
We gotta figure out when we can talk about this thing. But I got a copy right here: The Technological Republic, Hard Power, Soft Power, and the Future of the West. It looks fantastic.
It releases tomorrow.
Okay. So we could talk about it tomorrow if we can power through this thing tonight. Maybe I'll stay up all night, put myself in the cage.
Yeah, turn on PMF or Die.
Yeah,
and just
reading. Okay.
Okay.
It's not too much of a beast. There's a bunch of end notes here, so I could probably get through this. It's 218 pages more or less. Yeah, I could rip through this. Yeah.
Easy work.
Yeah. You do page a minute. It's it's not a coffee table book size. It's like, reasonable font.
Hey,
I can rip it.
Off the stream, John.
Oh yeah. I can't share it yet. It's embargoed.
It's embargoed.
And then they also have The Republic, which is their magazine that they publish at Palantir.
Very nice.
I got a copy. I don't know if this is something that you can just go pick up, but it looks beautiful. Look, American Power and the Cost of Uncertainty. I mean, the design language is fantastic. Wouldn't you agree? It's like really cool design. We love these printed things.
That's what I'm saying. Palantir and Anduril have such dominant brands.
Yeah, totally.
They're distinct in their own ways.
Yep.
But it's hard to come in as a defense tech brand. You really have to carve out. They've clearly are owning two of the best possible niches, which is sci-fi, futuristic, and sort of elevated modern. Inspirational, patriotic, establishment, feeling branding. So